So many people are feeling the burden of student loans and whether or not they will have their student loans forgiveness on one side, and many taxpayers are reticent and opposing any such policy because they know that taxpayers will have to write the check, and they feel that the people who took out their student loans should be the ones responsible for paying them back, and it shouldn't be offset to taxpayers. This is a very contentious topic. I did a previous video that was devoted to explaining Joe Biden and his administration's debt forgiveness program and whether or not it's likely to pass muster. I think it was important to break down the impact of that policy and the likelihood of whether or not people's student loans will actually be forgiven. That it is not a slam dunk, even though it's being marketed as such, that everyone will have, if they qualify, will have their student loans forgiven. No. As we speak, it's being challenged in court and it's likely to be struck down. I mean, anything can happen, but I want to err on the side of caution and warn you not to get your hopes up. So this video is going to be a breakdown as to the bona fide methods, the recognized methods of getting your student loans forgiven. I want it all in one place, so if you need to refer back to it. So that's what I'm going to go through in this video. Before I get into the breakdown of the bona fide method, the recognized method of actually having your student loans forgiven, this is the legal code, and on this channel we discuss various legal topics, whether that's public policies, legal implications of different laws that are being passed, how to protect yourself and your family, whether you own a small business, legal pitfalls to avoid. We discuss a wide range of legal topics so that you can be informed and know what to expect. Occasionally, we touch on celebrity shenanigans, but only in so much as that you can gain some value from their mistakes, because although they have a lot of money and resources, they do make mistakes. So if there's a legal nugget that we could take away and I could present it to you that is useful to your daily life, we'll discuss it. With that being said, I am a real life attorney, so if you like the opportunity to work with me to troubleshoot areas of your small business that you are having agita about, if you're tired of duct taping things together for your small business and you need the insight and expertise of an attorney, I'm at your disposal. You may hit the link in the description box so that we can iron out any difficulties you're experiencing and troubleshoot and take it from there. With that being said, let's get into this topic. With many people feeling the burden of student loans and student loan forgiveness, it's an important and hot topic right now, especially since Biden just announced his new plan to forgive up to $20,000 of student loan debt for millions of borrowers. But word of caution, don't hold off on paying back the rest of your student loans because you're counting on your loans being canceled by the Biden administration. Keep in mind, this kind of mass student loan cancellation has never been done before, and there's a strong chance that Biden's plans will be legally challenged, as it is being challenged right now as we speak, that he or the executive branch does not have the power to cancel student loan debt with any executive order unless this power is conferred by Congress. Now, student loan forgiveness first came on the scene in 2007 to help graduates with their student loan debt. By then, the total federal student loan debt was over $500 million. Now, it's in the trillions of dollars. So up until recently, student loan forgiveness had only been available through special federal programs with very specific requirements, like making a certain number of payments or working for an approved employer. But since President Biden unveiled this policy, he's introducing a new student loan forgiveness plan that aims to cancel a portion of federal student loan debt for any borrower who makes a certain amount of money each year. Well, this plan opens the possibility for more people having their student loan forgiveness, It's technically a one-time student debt relief, not an actual forgiveness program that will be enduring. And it's not a slam dunk. It's not a definite thing as of yet, because it is being challenged by the court. Is my microphone in? Okay. It's being challenged in court as we speak. So not all student loan forgiveness programs are created equal. You should know that. Each has its own set of rules and a separate application process. And if it already sounds complicated, that's because it's designed to be. And it doesn't help that these programs are constantly being tweaked. But let's walk through the most common bona fide student loan forgiveness programs and their current requirements. Keep in mind, these are only for federal student loans. Private student loan forgiveness is a whole other beast. Now, the first way to have your student loans forgiven, the most common way most people recognize, is the public service loan forgiveness. When people talk about student loan forgiveness, they're usually talking about the public service loan forgiveness, PSLF. You might hear people say, all they have to do is work for a nonprofit for 10 years and your student loans are taken care of. Well, it's not quite that simple, and you still have to keep paying your student loans in the meantime in order to qualify for service loan forgiveness. You must also have direct loans. Again, private loans do not fall under this criteria. You must work full-time for a qualifying employer like the government or a 501c3 nonprofit. You must have an income-driven payment plan. That just means that the amount of each monthly payment is based on the amount of money you make, and you work that out with your loan servicer. And you must also make 120 payments and never miss a payment over the duration of 10 years. Now, a lot of people apply for PSLF, but the odds of actually having your loans forgiven through this program is extremely low. Between November 2020 and July 2022, there were over 1 million applications. And the amount of applications that were eligible that met the criteria was just 24,000, slightly over 24,000. So you're more likely to become a prima ballerina, it looks like. This means that less than 2% of those loans who applied for public service loan forgiveness are approved. And even if you're one of the chosen ones who manages to actually get an approval letter, you might want to tread lightly. Some borrowers have reported that they previously qualified for the program and received letters of denial years later. That means they were left having to stay at a low-paying job only to find out they still owed the money at the end of that time at that job. This is horrible. Another way that's recognized is teacher loan forgiveness. Now, if you're a teacher, you might be able to ditch up to $17,500 of your federal student loans. Again, this does not apply to private loans, but there are a few things that you need to do before you can get any part of this. In order to apply for a teacher loan forgiveness, you must first have direct loans or federal family education loans, either subsidized or unsubsidized. You must also teach full-time for 5 academic years in a row, have taken out the loan before the end of your 5 teaching years. And you must also teach in a low-income students at an educational service agency or at the elementary, middle, or high school level. So this doesn't apply if you teach for a city university or state university. And then you also must make sure you've never had an outstanding balance on your loan. That means not a single missed payment. Even after you've checked all of those boxes, your application may still not be approved. And you should know that the only way you can get up to $17,500 forgiven is if you're a math, science, or special education teacher. Other areas, all other specialties of teaching do not apply. And any teacher that can only get up, and if you teach in other areas, you can get up to $5,000 forgiven. So those special areas only apply to this amount of forgiveness. If you teach in another subject, then $5,000 may be forgiven. Teaching is noble and a much needed profession, but if you're only going to go into teaching because you're expected to bank off of the possibility of paying off your student loans, you may end up very disappointed. Now, the next area, total and permanent disability discharge. This one obviously comes at a cost, but if you have a disability that leaves you totally or permanently disabled, your federal student loans or your teacher education assistance for college and high school education or teach grants could be discharged. In order to qualify for a total or permanent disability, you have to prove your disability status to either the Veterans Affairs, the Social Security Office, or your physician must actually provide documentation that you have a bona fide disability. But you should also know that if your loans do get discharged, you'll be monitored for the next 3 years to make sure you're actually disabled. And if that changes during that time, during those 3 years, you'll have to start paying on your loans again. So do not think of anything rogue and breaking your leg or injuring yourself in order to avoid paying student loans off. Save yourself the headache. Now, the next area is very distinct. Now, it's called the borrower defense to loan repayment. This happens if your school misled you or induced you by violating certain state laws. You may be able to have some or all of your student loans discharged. You only qualify for this if your school committed fraud related to directly to you taking out federal student loans, like claiming more graduates got jobs straight out of their program than actually did. And you can actually present evidence of the contrary. Now, the borrower defense usually happens automatically for those who are affected on a large scale, like the recent cancellation for those who attended Corinthians College or ITT Tech. But if you feel as an individual that you have a case for borrower defense and you want to apply on your own, you'll have to wade through a lot of legal documentation and proving that you were wrongfully induced into attending this college based on inflated numbers. While it is possible that you could get your loans discharged this way, proving that your school committed fraud isn't easy. Closed school discharge, on the other hand, if you lost money because your school closed before you could get a degree, you may qualify because the school actually closed. So if you were enrolled when your school closed, or you were on a leave of absence, an approved leave of absence when the school closed, or your school closed within 120 days of you withdrawing and you took out loans before a certain date, or if your school closed within 180 days after you withdrew and you took out loans on or after a certain date. So again, that's very niche and that affects such a small percentage of people. So by now, you've probably figured out that student loan forgiveness isn't exactly a nonstop ticket to freedom. There are a lot of eligibility hoops you have to jump through, most of which can turn on a dime. And the last thing you want to do is hang your hat on something that's not steady. And to stay in a low-paying job for 10 years in the hopes of your student loan being forgiven, only to realize later that you did all that work for nothing, especially when you could have been paying off your student loans in half the time and saved on a ton of money and interest. But with that being said, you should, of course, apply for any student loan forgiveness programs anyway. That is my advice. If you already put in the hours, or you believe or you speculate to have put in the hours at an approved job and you made the required payments and you think applying for forgiveness will help you come out ahead, just apply, because you never know. But that doesn't mean, even if you've worked at a 501c3 or a government agency, that your loans will be forgiven during the 10 years of your employment. So I just want you to be aware and don't get your hopes up. There is a possibility that you will be denied. Also, in terms of Biden's debt forgiveness program, I didn't speak much about it because I alluded to it in my previous video. If you believe that you qualify, that you meet the eligibility criteria, by all means apply. You never know. Just because it's being held up in court, it's not a win on either side yet. And we don't know what may come of it. So just apply. But unless that balance on your student loans actually goes down, there's nothing that's guaranteed. And I just want you to be aware and don't get your hopes up years from now making career changes or making career moves in the hopes that your student loans get forgiven. And I wish this were less convoluted and it was easier and more transparent. But again, it's by design. And I don't want you chasing pavements, trying to figure out on a hopeless endeavor, because the laws are always changing and shifting. Also, this is what I remember. Many people think bankruptcy is a way out of student loans. No, student loans cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. If you're using that as a method, thinking that you can pile on debt and just charge it off in a bankruptcy proceeding, no, that is not the case. Student loans are regulated in such a stringent way that forces people to have to pay it back. I mean, it's easier to walk away from a house than it is to walk away from your student loans. Like, this is really something that anchors you, and you should be aware of that. And that's why I did this video, so you can share this information with anyone. If you know anyone beginning college and thinking about taking student loan debt on, use this video to give them some background information and help them make an informed decision before they take on a Goliath amount of debt that they may not be able to pay off, or which may impact their quality of life as they become adults. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.